All right, Governor Perry, your tax reform proposal includes an optional flat tax. Doesn't an optional track in taxation just reduce the government's revenue and increase tax complexity?
Well, no, because the people are going to decide what's best, which form of taxation is the best form. And so that's how it's going to be better.
Mr. King, you advocate a 999 system. Do you think that multiple tracks is the way to go?
No, I do not, Wolf. And the reason for this is that if there are multiple tracks, then the government's debt is going to get too large. The Tax Policy Center said that my plan of a 999 will not increase the deficit. Compare that to the other candidates' plans, who haven't actually given numbers of how much their plan will generate. Now, the multiple options is only going to harm our deficit and harm the government's revenue that we need to fight the wars in Afghanistan that we have going on right now.
Congresswoman Bachman, this summer you were against raising the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling was raised, and the United States credit rating was downgraded by S&P anyway. Has history proven you right? Or would not raising the debt ceiling have risked further default and a greater downgrade?
The reason I stated, the reason I stated that we must not raise the debt ceiling was of a very simple principle. We should not raise the debt ceiling if we are not willing to cut spending. Now, this has not been done, and I believe that history has proven me right. It is time to draw the line in the sand and put the federal government back in its place. We must shrink the size of government and balance its budget. That's what we need to do.
Speaker Gingrich, was the credit downgrade the fault of a lack of presidential leadership, or did it have to do with the Tea Party Republicans?
I think there's no question here. It's the Obama's fault here. The lack of compromise between the Republicans and the Democrats is entirely on his shoulders. The Republicans offered spending cut after spending cut after spending cut, and each time the Senate Democrats and the Obama administration shot down those spending proposals. We need a responsible system of spending and taxation. That's why I advocate a 15% optional flat tax, just like Governor Perry's plan, in addition to massive spending cuts to bring our deficit under control. Every dollar cut in taxes is another dollar in the pockets of American citizens, and that is better for the country as a whole.
All right, this leads me to a different kind of question. Can we get a show of hands among the candidates to answer this question? When we were having the debt ceiling debate in Congress, the question was, what should the ratio of spending cuts to tax increases be? How many of you would be willing to accept a Democrat proposal of a 10-to-1 ratio of spending cuts to tax increases? Show of hands of who would be willing to accept that. 10-to-1? No? 100-to-1? 1,000,000-to-1?
Wolf, I think I speak for all of us when I say I agree with Grover Norquist that even if terrorists were holding our grandmothers hostage, if all they wanted us to do was raise taxes on the richest, our response is, well, we have pictures.
I have to put something in right there, because really when you ask that question, it doesn't give us the option of looking over what those new taxes are and what they're going to be used for and what we're going to be cutting. Of course, it would never be responsible for any one of us candidates to show our hands when you just propose a random plan that we do not have any insight into.
Fair enough. What tax increases do you think would be acceptable?
Well, I don't think that's really a good question until we look into the other things that we have going on. So, for example, one of the huge ones is Obamacare. This has caused our freedom to be taken under mine. We need to address these problems before we look into even possibilities of new taxes.
Interesting. Congressman Paul, you raised your hand a second. Did you have a comment?
No.
All right, excellent. Let's move on to some other questions here. Governor Romney, consumer optimism seems on the rise after all-time record high Black Friday sales. Will consumer confidence lead the economic recovery, or is this uptick in consumer spending unsustainable?
Consumer confidence is entirely dictated by the success that we give our businesses. It's also dictated by religious holidays, which I adhere to. But it's to answer your question in a roundabout way. I believe that increasing the amount of jobs and increasing the amount of business and the competitiveness abroad is all that matters. Consumers look at that and say, this is a country where business matters. I'm going to buy from this country.
Speaker Gingrich, what should America's role be in solving the European debt crisis?
Well, they got themselves into it, and they shouldn't have to get themselves out of it. Now, I'm all for aiding them in ways that don't cost us money, that don't increase our deficit. If we can help our allies, such as the UK, France, and Germany over there, we should certainly do it. But they got themselves into this irresponsible mess. And if they can't get themselves out of it, it's not our job to bail them out. We bailed the big banks out. We bailed the auto companies out. It is not our job to bail the Eurozone out. Otherwise, who knows next? They might be asking us to bail India out. And only Tango got that.
But Mr. Speaker, what types of, I mean, you say we should do plans that don't cost any revenue to assist them. How would we do that? What examples might that be, and how would that solve the debt crisis?
We could certainly aid them in fiscal austerity, in deciding which programs they need to eliminate, and analyzing the proposals that they put forth. But like I said, it's first and foremost their job. And if there are any options on the table for us to look at that don't cost us money, I would be willing to look at those. But I'm not willing to bail the Eurozone out.
Interesting. Mr. King, currently Congress is debating the extension of the payroll tax cut, which President Obama has advocated. Should Congress extend the payroll tax holiday?
Congress should extend the payroll tax holiday. But what we really need to do is to get somebody in Washington that understands how the economy specifically works. I believe the economy is like a pizza. And when you're trying to decide how to make a pizza, you take someone who has made a pizza, not someone who sits in a conference room deciding how to make the pizza. I have been in the economy. I am a businessman, a successful businessman. And to get this economy growing again, we need someone who's been in the economy and who's been in the business of making jobs. So in order to get the incentives of businesses to grow again and to create jobs again, we need someone like me in Washington, not someone like President Obama who has failed the economy.
All right, let's get another raise of hands real quick on this issue of the extension of the payroll tax cut. Raise your hand if you believe that the payroll tax cut ought to be extended, as President Obama wants. All right, this leads me to a question for Speaker Gingrich. If you do not want to extend the payroll tax cut, doesn't that seem at odds with the conservative ideology of low taxes, as many of you have proposed in tax proposals so far? Is this just automatic opposition to the president, or is this ideological divergence?
Well, in a vacuum, this would be inconsistent with our philosophy of no new taxes. But the fact that I oppose one tax cut does not mean that I oppose cutting taxes. The payroll tax is specific in that it pays into Social Security. Cutting that without cutting spending would increase the budget deficit, and allowing the budget deficit to increase would be irresponsible. What we should do is cut the payroll tax along with the package of cutting spending. Cutting the payroll tax by itself is irresponsible. We should do it in conjunction with cutting spending.
You bring up Social Security. Governor Perry, earlier in the campaign, you referred to
Ponzi scheme.
Yes, yes, you knew where I was going. It's a Ponzi scheme. Do you believe that this could potentially cause fear among older Americans?
Yes, older Americans will be afraid.
No.
Because they won't have reason to be afraid. And
Governor Romney, you were extremely critical of Governor Perry's remarks telling Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Is Social Security a Ponzi scheme, and does it need reform?
Well, to disagree with Perry, I would say it's not a Ponzi scheme. Also, Ponzi schemes are good. But thirdly, Social Security is important for millions and millions of Americans. It's very important, and these are the specific demographic that I need to target to get the primary election. And so I'm going to answer you and say we need to protect these people.
All right, interesting. Well, that concludes our round on the economy. Oh, yeah.
I would just like to point out that Speaker Gingrich is on my side on this issue because we do have pictures.
All right, moving on. That concludes our round on the economy. Thank you all very much. I would like to move into a little bit different dynamic in the questioning. I offered to each of you before you came that you could prepare one question for one of your fellow candidates. I would like to give you an opportunity to voice those questions now. And how about we start on my right here with Governor Huntsman. Do you have a question for one of your fellow candidates?
Yes, I have a question for Ron Paul, and this is about supporting our allies, specifically our allies in Israel. Now, if Israel were to get themselves into a fix in the Middle East, would you be willing to support them and to back up our allies?
No, we cannot interfere in the affairs of foreign countries. We need to stop going in wars in other countries and defending our borders instead. There's nobody in this world that can attack us. We need to be keeping our strength over on our borders. We cannot be interfering in the affairs of foreign countries. We need to bring our troops home, back into America, so that they're not getting killed over in other countries. We need to be protecting our country, not the ones over in the Middle East.
Excellent. Congressman Paul, would you like to pose a question to one of your fellow candidates?
Yes, I would. I would like to ask Governor Romney, what would you do to end the business cycle that is caused by the Federal Reserve and inflating the money supply?
I'll tell you what I'll do. That's exactly what I did in Massachusetts, which is fix the economy. In Massachusetts, we balanced the budget. We produced more jobs than anyone here combined could work in a 40-hour week. And we did that with my name endorsing each and every action. And I think that's important. So it would be Romney tax.
All right, Governor Perry.
I would just like to attack Governor Romney because he's being a flip-flopper. Really, in regards to the Second Amendment, whole fiasco that we've been going through, is this, the American people need to know which Mitt Romney we're dealing with here. Is this the Mitt Romney that was before the Second Amendment? Or is this the Mitt Romney that was before, after the border control?
Governor Romney.
I agree. A lot of people call me a flip-flopper, but what they don't realize is the nuance in my opinions and statements. For instance, in 2005, I said that women have the right to choose. More recently, I said that abortion should be illegalized. I still think women should choose, they just only have one choice now.
All right, very good, Governor Romney. Would you like to pose a question to one of your fellow candidates?
Terry. $15 million right now. Have you read the last sentence of the book? Right now, right now. 3, 2, 1, $20 million. $20 million.
Governor Romney, recently analysts on both sides of the spectrum, including Paul Krugman of New York Times and myself, have criticized you for your time at Bain Capital, stating that you eliminated far more jobs than necessary and unnecessarily boosted the bottom line of the firm while destroying jobs on net. What do you have to say to the American people to defend yourselves against these very compelling accusations?
A corporation's #1 responsibility is to itself, because a corporation is a person, no matter how small. And my corporation profited greatly, and we did that because we're Americans, and that's what Americans do. We profit.